Good morning, everyone. Welcome to our How Best to Complete Accords and Other Important Apps. This is our first time doing this webinar, and we hope that you will gather a lot of good information from it and really enjoy it. My name is Anae Agostini. I'm CEO of CID Insurance Programs, and I want to welcome and introduce our team that's going to be participating today. Teresa Cochran, she's a garage and commercial underwriter. Michelle Belden, nonprofit and commercial underwriter. And Lexi Johnson, work comp and professional underwriter. And of course, Jacob Cole, who's our marketing coordinator, who makes everything run smoothly. So without further ado, let's get started. Logistics are the basics. You will be defaulted to mute. You're able to hear, but not speak. But your voice is important to us, so please pose your questions in the chat room at any time throughout the webinar, and we will answer those questions as we go along. There'll also be a short survey at the end of the webinar, and so we again appreciate your feedback and want to know how best to improve the webinars. What are our objectives today? Well, we want to understand the best practices related to completing Accord forms. And frankly, Accord forms can be a real pain, and there is a science to it, and it will be, you're going to learn a little bit about that today. So how to best get a competitive quote in a fast manner. We're also going to talk about how to send in quality submissions and as I said, receive timely and competitive quotes. And you're going to get questions answered by our expert underwriters. So they're going to be at your disposal today to answer questions. So without further ado, I'm going to turn this over to Michelle.
No, to me, Teresa.
Oh, sorry, to Teresa.
No problem. All right. Good morning, everyone. I am Teresa Cochran, and I'm the garage underwriter and also a commercial package underwriter here at CID. And I'm going to be going through the Accord 125 and 126 with you. Jacob listed some of the sections on each of the two Accord forms, and we will be hitting most of those sections today. All right, so right now we're looking at the Accord 125. And yeah, there's a lot of boxes on here, but guess what? We don't have to fill them all in. So I'm going to fill in the boxes I'm looking for when I'm looking through a submission from all of you. And the example we're going to be filling out an Accord application for a clothing store today. All right, so we're going to put in the date. And bear with me as I type through these different sections here. I already have some agency information in this box. Over here, you're going to let me know what coverages we're going to be quoting. So we're going to be doing property. Where is that? General liability right here. And we're also going to be doing an umbrella. Status of transaction is going to be quote. We're looking for a quote today. The proposed effective date is today. So you guys aren't giving me a lot of time to quote this, but we're going to use today as the effective date. The name of the insured. We're going to use Fashion Store Inc. and their DBA, if I can spell, is going to be Fashion Spot. And mailing address. Keep it nice and simple. And it's Fashion Store Inc. So their form of business is a corporation. I'm not going to worry about any ID numbers. Date of business. That little box over here is overlooked quite often, but it is very important to us as an underwriter to see what experience they have. We're going to say they started 2 years ago. The inspection contact is going to be the owner of the corporation, and we're going to call her Mary Smith. And her phone number looks good to me. The accounting record, it's going to be the same person as the inspection contact, so not going to worry about completing that part. All right, location 1, building 1. It's going to be the same address as the mailing, so I'm going to copy and paste that information over here. We're in San Diego. We're inside a city limit. The corporation is the owner of the building, so I'm going to click on owner. The year built of the building is 1980, and this clothing store occupies 100% of the building. This box right here is very important. It helps us to understand what risk we are quoting. So the nature of the business, well, it's a retail clothing store. Oh my goodness. And I'm also going to put that it's an owner-occupied building. Okay. General information. These little boxes down here, I did answer the questions. So, you know, take your time, read through the questions. This is the only, usually they're going to be answered all no. But today I answered this one yes. I am saying that this clothing store, their policy has either been declined, canceled, or non-renewed. And right here in the remarks section, I'm going to put that coverage was non-renewed due to carrier no longer writing this type of business. Okay? So it's at no fault to the insured, but the carrier is just no longer writing clothing stores. And now we're going to go down to page 2 of the Accord 125, where you're going to put in all the lovely information about what carriers they've been with since 2019 when they started the business. We're just going to say that they've been with Farmers. And their policy number is right there. Their policy dates. And it's the same for the property. So we're going to scroll down here. And I'm just going to copy and paste these dates. So they've been fully covered by Farmers the entire time they've been in business. But Farmers is getting off of it, so we're looking for a new home. And honestly, this is really all I'm looking for on the second page with the prior carrier information. All right, any losses? No, they haven't had any losses. I'm going to click this little box here. And guess what? We're done with the 125. Now we're on to the 126, which is all about general liability. So down at the top, put our date in here. Fashion Store Inc. The effective date is also today. Not going to worry about the payment plans because the carriers we use, some of them are direct bill, some are agency bill. So I'm just going to leave this blank because sometimes you don't have a choice. So we're going to move on from there. We have, you know, they want the general liability. It's a clothing store, so it's going to be per occurrence. Claims made is usually your professional liability, your professional types of risks. I have standard 1 million, 2 million general liability limits listed out here. Schedule of hazards. This is where we're going to go over all the liability exposures. All right, so location 1, we got a retail clothing store. Put that in. That's the classification of the risk. Don't worry about class codes. Some carriers use ISO codes. Some carriers use their own codes. Feel free to leave that blank. Premium basis. Clothing store, sales. That's going to be your main exposure here. We're going to say to about $200,000 a year. What other exposures can we go over? Maybe a square footage. Who knows? Maybe some carriers rate on square footage. So we're going to put 1,000 square feet here. And I'm going to include payroll as well. These are going to be your 3 main premium bases that you're going to be inputting on these on the Accord 125. Okay, so I got all those inputted. Let's see. This is not a claims-made type of policy. Again, that's typically for a professional type of risk. We're not asking for any employee benefits liability. Not a contractor. And the product's completed operations, that's really going to be for a manufacturing type of risk. So we don't have to complete these answers either. All right, additional insured. Yes, we're going to say that they do have an additional insured. They have a mortgagee. They own the building. They have a loan on the building. So we want to make sure the mortgagee is included. Okay, next for location 1, building 1. And we're going to say this is the mortgage company. And here's some general information. Again, I check marked them. They're typically always going to be no, but make sure you read them, you get familiar with the questions. And guess what? That's it. So not too bad, not too many boxes you have to fill in. Now we're going to go into the property section, and my coworker Michelle Belden is going to go through that with you.
Hi everyone, I'm Michelle and I'm your commercial and nonprofit underwriter. So today I'm going to go over the Accord 140, so the property section, as well as the Accord 131 for the umbrella. And just give me 1 second to swap that around. So I'm just going to show you guys, and then I'm going to do the same thing Teresa did. I'm going to go through and type through on the Accord. So just a real quick glance at what we're going over. All the highlighted sections on the Accord 140 is what we're going to go over today. So let me pull that up for you guys. Like Teresa, I'm going to follow her date. So I already typed in today's date and put in our agency information. So I'm going to go ahead and fill in the named insured. And again, we're going to put the policy dates in. And like Teresa said, selecting the payment plan information doesn't matter. It's not going to affect anything one way or the other. And then the next information that I'm most concerned about is the building information, including the address on this page. So this is premises 1, building 1. So if they had multiple premises, we just list premise 1, premise 2, and then however buildings are each of those premises. And then again with the address. All right, so now for the subject of insurance. There's always different ways people fill this out. So what we're looking for here is what type of property coverage you're looking for. Sometimes I'll see people will list the address here or list a description of what the building is. That's not what we're looking for here. Here we're looking for what type of coverage you're looking for. So since they own the building, they need building coverage. So we're going to give them $150,000 in building coverage. Your co-insurance is important. We will automatically default them if there isn't a co-insurance listed on there to 80%. That is our requirement. In this case, we're going to give them special form replacement costs. So that's our valuation here is replacement cost, and we want to give them special form. Not too concerned about inflation guard, and then a deductible. Generally speaking, if a deductible is not applied, standard deductible is either going to be $1,000 or $2,500, depending on the carrier, on what they pick. We're also, since they are a clothing store and they have merchandise, we're going to also give them business personal property, also known as BPP. So we're going to give them that. And we're going to give them $50,000 in BPP. And again, we're, filling out this information as well. And then we're also going to give them business income. And some people will leave this blank or put ALS, which stands for, their total losses. So we're going to actually give them a specific amount. So we need a specific amount for business income. Regardless if the carrier will offer them ALS or not, we still need a number because we still have to put something in. So I'm going to give them $100,000 in business income. And then if there's any other property coverages you're looking for, say, they want equipment breakdown, you can just list them down here. And, that's something else we can include. So equipment breakdown is an example. Building ordinance is another example of other property coverages we can offer them. We can include a property enhancement endorsement. So any property coverages that you're looking for, we would be looking for them to be included on the 140. Some carriers automatically include certain coverages, as part of their bells and whistles, and that's fine. Not all of them do. So if you list out, we will make sure we're including the coverages that you're looking for. So we're not having to, continually requote the risk for you. This additional information section, not really too concerned about it. So like I said, we're really looking for this information at the top, your building information and your business income, and then any other coverages you're looking for. Now, as far as the building makeup goes, this is extremely important to us. So we need the construction type. Most buildings, I'm going to say in California, are frame. Protection class is important to us, so I'm going to put 2. This building is 1 story, no basements. We're going to say it was built in 1980, like Teresa put on her first page. And that's something also, too, that we're comparing to, making sure the information, that is listed on the 125 and 126 corresponds to what's listed on the 140. Obviously, we want it to be consistent. And then we're making the building is 1,000 square feet. So the building was built in 1980. So at this point, the building is 41 years old, which for most of our carriers means they don't qualify for special form anymore. So for them to be able to qualify for special form replacement costs, we are looking for building updates. So to the wiring, roofing, plumbing, and heating. So we're looking for this information. So a lot of times I will get just this. The X's are marked, but no years are provided. We need to know what year the building was updated. So in this case, I'm going to say the building was updated in 2010 for all components. It can be, all over the place. They only did one part at a time. That's totally fine. But we do need that information in order to offer in order to offer you guys special form replacement costs. Without that information, we're only going to be able to offer you basic ACV. Also, this information is important as well, even if we're only offering them business personal property. Say they are just the tenant of the building and they don't own anything else. They don't own the building themselves. We still need this information in order to quote with our markets. And then we also, honestly, all of this information, nothing else really matters except for burglar alarm. So if they have a central station burglar alarm, please let us know. That way we can offer them and include theft coverage for them. So I'm just going to say Bay Area alarm, we'll call it that. So we are looking for that. And if we have to inspect the risk, that is something that we'd be looking to have confirmed so we can ensure that we are able to offer them theft coverage. Because if they don't have that central station alarm, we can't offer theft, so theft will be excluded. And yes, please mark if it is a central station alarm. That is extremely important to us. And then the next piece of information that we're concerned about is, whether or not the building is sprinkled or not. That is very helpful. Some carriers offer a sprinkler credit. So depending on, the building, let's just say this building is based on the age, it probably isn't sprinklered, but this is an important area to put, if it's partially sprinklered so what percentage is sprinklered, please include that information if you have it. And then last but not least, we are going to include a mortgagee and a loss payee on here. So we did ABC Bank at, and again, just include this information for us so we can make sure the appropriate additional insured forms are included on the policy. If you have a loan number, feel free to include that. I know we don't always get that information, and sometimes you don't get that information as well. But if you have that, please include that on there, and we'll make sure that's included on the certificate as well. So that is the 140. And again, if we scroll to the second page, it's just repeating the information all over again. So if they had multiple buildings, you would just be putting in what coverages you're looking for that building and, the same basic information. If they've had updates, what year it was built, the construction type, the square footage. So would be repeating that information. So I'm going to pop over to the Accord 131, which
Michelle,
is for...
before you move on, there's
Sure.
a couple questions.
Okay, not a
Do
problem.
you need me to read them or can you see them?
Give me 1 second. Let me read them real quick. All right, so I see we have a question about protection class. Generally speaking, if something's within the city limits, it's generally a protection class 1 to 6. Generally, I would say it's really 1 to a 3. I know some agents use certain services where they can, they're running a report on the building anyways in order to determine, their replacement costs on the building. So that report also provides them with the protection class, things like that. Some of our carriers do put the protection class on there for us when we, go in to quote the risk. So if you don't know the protection class, I mean, it's important to us, but we can move forward without it. I mean, as long as they're not in some extremely high wooded area, extremely far from city limits where, the protection class could easily be like a 9 or a 10, that's when we get into those are higher risk type locations. So really, generally speaking, your protection class is going to be between 1 and 6 if it's something that's, within the city limits. And then we have another question. Okay, so our other question is towards a specific type of risk for a HOA community association, and they're asking about if they had any sort of patrol, so like a security guard or anything like that on their premise. That's not necessarily something that you would list on the Accords, not on the 140 or anything like that. For our HOAs, we have specific supplementals where these questions are asked, so we would be putting that information on those, not specifically on the Accords. All right, and I believe that was it for our 2 questions. So I'm going to pop over to the Accord 131. So Teresa also said we were going to give them an umbrella. So that's what the Accord 131 is for. Again, I filled out some basic information on here already for us as far as the agent. Put their name. Again, you can skip over the payment information. We're not going to worry about that. So we're calling this a new because it's new to us. It might be a renewal for you guys, but the account is new to us, so we're going to call it new. I'm not too concerned about your retroactive date. So here is your limit of liability. This is what limit we're looking for. So we're going to say they want a $2 million umbrella. So we're going to put that in. So that's the limit. So the limit that they're looking for is important to us because it will help determine what markets we can go to. Some of our markets can go up to $5 million. Some of them can go up a little bit higher. It just depends on the type of risk it is and what limit they're looking for. Again, we're going to put in their location information. All right, and then I believe Teresa put $40,000 for their payroll, and we've had $200,000 for the sales. I'm not concerned about foreign sales, and the number of employees I'm not concerned about here. So now we want to know what coverages you want to go over. For sure, we want to go over the general liability. So here is where you would list the carrier. If you're quoting it new to us, and we don't know who the carrier is going to be yet, that's fine. We don't need that necessarily filled in. If you were just looking for us to do an umbrella over an existing policy for you, I'm just going to put Farmers in for an example, and then we'd want to know what their policy dates are for their umbrella, and then you're going to fill in your standard limits. And this is important to us, especially if they have 2-4 limits, already, what limits they're looking to go over. These are things that we would need to know. And then, so let's say we want to include the auto liability. So this could either be a true commercial auto policy, or say they have hired an unknown auto. So we're going to say that they have hired an unknown auto included on their current Farmers policy. So we're going to, again, fill in this information. All right, and then we're going to say they have $1 million limits right now included. All right, and then we can also go over the employer's liability, so their work comp policy, if they have a work comp policy. So let's just say they have one through employers, and we're going to include that as well. Again, if you don't have this information, including it on here, especially having the, the carrier and things like I said, if they are currently shopping the account and we don't know who the underlying is going to be, that's not a problem for us. Because what we're going to end up asking you as well, in addition to the Accord 131 to quote the umbrella, is we're also going to ask you either for a copy of the underlying quotes or policy that they have in place. that we're going over because our carriers are going to need to see the forms list, and we're going to need to know the premium. So the GL portion of it is going to be rated on the GL premium from the underlying policy. So having that information isn't helpful as well. So just giving us an Accord 131 is a little difficult because we don't have enough information to quote off of. So any underlying policy you're looking for us to go over, we would need a copy of that as well. But like I said, we can definitely work off any quotes, underlying quotes. It doesn't have to be a policy that's in effect yet. And then honestly, most of these questions I don't really care for to be answered. They don't necessarily apply because we're getting a copy of that quote or the policy, so we're already seeing all the rating factors on there. So really, I'm most concerned about the first page and what information, what policies we're looking to go over. So that's pretty much it for the 140 and the 131. So I'm going to go ahead and transfer this over to Lexi Johnson, and she's going to go through the work comp accords for you.
Okay, thanks, Michelle. Hi, everyone. My name is Lexi. I am our professional and work comp underwriter at CID. Today, I'm going to go over the workers' comp Accord 130 application, which needs to be completed for any workers' comp risk. So here are just 10 basic pieces of information I need completed on the Accord 130 in order to underwrite. So first is the name insured and the entity, the form of business they are. I need to know the name insured. And also this should match with how they're filed with the state. So make sure that that is identical to how they're filed. Also, the FEIN number, which is the Federal Employer Identification Number, this is how all our carriers track their submissions. So I have to have the FEIN number completed. That's how I tell if a market is blocked already or submitted by another agent. And then the location address, of course, this has to be the physical location of the business. The insured contact information, this is actually a lot of times overlooked, but I need to know the insured contact information that includes their first and last name, their phone number, and also their email address. And that's just because nowadays everything is electronic instead of being physically mailed, so carriers need this on file. And then ownership information, I need the name of the owners, the percentage of ownership, and also if they are being included or excluded from coverage. So for example, if you have a corporation and you're putting 3 different owners, then you'll split the percentage between them. And then payroll classification. So this is basically how are the employees being classified. You would list the number of full-time, part-time employees, and then you would also provide their estimated annual payroll per class code if there are multiple classes being listed. And then the detailed description of operations. This is just, a good understanding of the business. What are their operations? What are the duties of the employees? What are they performing day to day? And then the prior carrier information. So this, of course, is if they have prior coverage, I have to know their claims history. This also would be a really great place to provide a target premium, just so I know what we need to aim for to secure the bind. And then pages 3 and 4, just simple yes, no questions. Have they been non-renewed or canceled? Do they hire subcontractors? Do they work out of state? So just yes and no, you would check for that. And then lastly, I just need it signed by the agent. And then I'm going to show you an example of actually a completed Accord application. I pre-filled this one out. So here, everything that's highlighted is basically everything I just went over. So the applicant name, here it's a sole proprietor. So I put the DBA as Mark's Auto Shop. Their mailing address is filled out. They've been in business for 1 year. And then you can see the FEIN number is there as well. All work comp policies are direct bill, so that would be checked. And then their location address and the proposed effective date. And then if we go to the next slide. So here, contact information, this is the insured. So Mark Smith, his phone number, and then his email as well. Because this is sole proprietor, Mark Smith in California, he's automatically excluded from coverage. So here, he's 100% owner and then excluded. And then the rating information, if they have multiple locations, make sure to include payroll and employee count for each location and make sure it's listed. So there you would divide the payroll per location if they have multiple. So here we have class code 8389. He's mechanical repair, and there's 4 part-time employees at an estimated annual payroll of $65,000. And then the last part of the Accord 130, so here this is where you will include the prior carrier information. As I mentioned, this is a great spot to put the annual premium, so I know the target premium that we need to get under to bind. And then the description of operations, here it can be brief, but make sure to include information that would be useful for me to underwrite. So for example, years of experience, loss information, and their business operation, of course. And then, as I mentioned, I didn't put a copy of page 3 and 4, but they're just a simple yes and no questions that have to be completed. So this is how you complete a workers' comp Accord 130 application. Everything that was highlighted is what I need to quote. So now, Anae will take it from here, introducing professional.
Hi, everyone. I'm going to discuss professional liability applications. These are manuscript policies, very different from property and liability and workers' comp policies in that they are custom. Each carrier can write their own policy language, and professional liability is tied around professional services. So they're going to ask, they need to know a lot about what the professional is doing. So let's start, and everyone's talked a lot about the name of the applicant, but so many times I'm going to talk to you about things that actually I see quite often on applications where they'll put, John Smith as the name of the applicant. And then I go down to item number 6 and I look and see that they've marked corporation. I know I've got a problem at that point because the corporation's name is most likely not John Smith. And so the information, the named insured, needs to be very accurate, because if you have a lawsuit when you're dealing with professional liability, which is typically what would be the reason for carrying the policy, or an E&O mistake, you would have to have the right named insured on the policy for coverage to be afforded. So it becomes really important to get that information accurate right up front so that you don't end up with a policy that has the wrong named insured. Number 7 really is another very important, and everyone's talked a little bit about this, but this is where you need to really define the professional services being rendered. And you can't give just a phrase answer. You really need to look at their website. You'll see that I highlighted the website address up at the top, because guess what? The underwriter is going to go there, and even if you don't give the website, they're going to Google it and they're going to find it and do their own research. Ideally, you want to know everything up front so that you actually present a clean submission to the carrier. And so knowing what presenting themselves out on the website as, and then getting a detailed description of all types of services. Sometimes people like to be, they like to do be very diverse in the amount of things that they're trying to do for services, and sometimes that's a problem when it comes to insurance. So keep that in mind. Also, professional liability policies are rated based on gross receipts. So that becomes an important area. That information needs to be accurate. Most professional liability policies are not auditable, but they are based on the honor system. And obviously, this application becomes part of the policy, the completed and signed application. So obviously, if there's any misrepresentation on the application, I've seen a carrier pull the policy and actually just cancel it all the way back to inception date and return the premium when someone has misrepresented it on an application. So it's really important for the information to be accurate. So now I'm going to show you that was more of a general consulting type application. Now professional liability carriers, they will break out some of these classes of business because the coverages need to be very customized for that class of business. Technology is one of those, and so that becomes a whole different approach. I've highlighted again the description of operations is I'm not going to go over what I've said already, but that is still a very important part. But with technology, they want to ask even more questions. So you'll see, what does your business do under that description of operations? And then they actually have boxes that you can check for types of services that are in the technology arena. So that becomes a very important part. And again, looking at that website becomes super important to know what they are doing specifically. Here's another example. This one happens to be for architects and engineers. It's just a different way of describing, asking for information. So they're listing out most of the types of services that an architect or an engineer, and this also will cover construction management. You can see that's in there as well. And then they're asking for last fiscal year, current year, and then the number of licensed staff for doing the services, and then that percentage needs to add up to 100% in order for it to be accurate and break it down properly. And again, this is a property management application. I'm just showing you different ways that carriers gather information on different classes of business. So for a property management company, they want, again, it's going to be rated on revenues, but they're actually going to break it down on that particular application by the type of properties that they're managing. And some of those are going to be, the rate's going to be higher than the rate on others. And you can probably guess which ones those are. So they're looking for the revenues, the gross revenues, gross income that company is earning from each of those particular types of properties managed. And it's what you want the past 12 months, you want the projected for the next 12 months. They will rate off of the next 12 months projected income. And then they are asking for number of units, generally speaking. Now, in this case, that's properties managed. Many of our carriers will actually add real estate sales income as well. So you want to break that out. One is property management, and the other is real estate sales. So there's the second box, or the second section, H and I, will cover that for you and gives you that ability to have both services insured on one policy. Another important thing to look at with professional liability policies, you really need to know the insurance that they currently have. You want to list out the insurance company. You want that policy period, because you never really want to move an E&O policy midterm, because you want that retroactive date and everything to stay consistent. So it's always better to be moving it at the expiration of the policy. You want to know the limit of liability, because that's important. You either want to match it or improve it. And premium becomes obviously important. We're trying to beat that premium or at least match it and provide better coverage. So that's going to be important. Retroactive date is very important. So if they don't have any current insurance, then you won't have a retroactive date. Actually, the retroactive date would be the inception date of the policy if you were to bind one. So that so knowing whether they've got insurance or not, and if they do, you really need to know that retroactive date. Deductible is important because that varies a lot by carrier, so that becomes an important. And you can see here, there's errors and omissions, there's tenant discrimination, and employment practices liability being asked for here. Also, another area is claims. It will be important. You're going to see these same type of questions on every E&O, professional liability application, and it becomes important. You really have to find out whether they've got claims or not. I've had some, you see situations over and over again. Sometimes someone reports a notice to a carrier and it leaves an open claim that never gets closed on there. And so it's always a good idea for that, to get the insured to order the loss runs and make sure that there have not been any lawsuits, because that will impact, you know, a viable quote. Certainly we'll give you a quote, but it's going to be subject to no claims. And if there are claims, then that definitely could jeopardize whether that carrier will honor that quote or not. And that becomes an important part. And having prior notice or knowledge of a claim, you know, that you've got to answer all these questions accurately, because, again, you don't want to misrepresent, because this becomes part of the policy. Professional liability is a different beast, and all of the applications, you notice that I didn't show you an Acord app at all. I pulled from many different applications that are for professional liability carriers. And so you just have to, we've got a great, Lexi Johnson is our professional liability new business underwriter, and she's really good and can help you find your way through these applications if you have questions. So I want to thank you all for joining us, and if you have questions, please feel free to email those in, and we will answer them even after the webinar. Applications are available on our website, cidinsurance.com. And then we look forward to doing business with you, and hope and thank you, those that are already doing business with us. Thank you for your business. Take care.